welcome back to the show. You are joining a two-part series with Lara Pecco from GP Athletes, and we had such a good conversation the first time. We had to bring you more of it this week. So if you missed the first half, go back and listen to the previous episode. Otherwise, enjoy the show. I live here near to Purdue University, and it's a big state university and not nearly as individually, doesn't cater as much individually as smaller universities do, but they have the same criticism for food. I mean, this is a huge city, and this is 60,000 students, so it's a major metropolis in many ways, but their athletes have their own cafeteria because the cafeteria services just weren't able to do the level of protein and balance that the athletes required. There's some of that. And then also because they have a large international population, they have really shifted. 10 years ago, maybe their food selection was really awful. I say awful because if it's all American cuisine or like traditional, America doesn't have its own cuisine, right? We just took the cuisine from around the world that was the most comforting, added that into our what American food is. So we have all this comfort food, which is not necessarily healthy food. And that's really all that was on the menu. And so with the growth of international enrollment, there was a lot of feedback and input, and the university responded well and has a lot more selection, more choices, and people can eat healthier, and sometimes even more closer to
which
home.
is very important
Um,
in the first one in the
yeah.
first years is very very important. But that's also a very good example of how good is diversity, and connect each other, because if we didn't have this mix of international people in this environment, then probably the college will stay with the same type of food. So I think it's a very good example that diversity is good in many ways, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I'll tell a story from a small liberal arts university. It was probably 20 years ago now, and I was advising them on just some little ways they could be more hospitable to their international students. And I said, for example, you just need to offer rice a lot. Like it could be offered all the time with every meal. And they said, well, we don't have that many Asian students. I'm not sure, if that fits us. I said, just do something simple. Just add a small rice cooker, and when it runs out, you can have somebody there to add more rice and make more. I contacted a student from there about 6 months later. They had added rice. It had become so popular with all of the students that they had to add multiple rice cookers, and then they just made rice part of their standard diet. American students wanted more variety as well, and so when they had their Asian meals, those meals sold out much faster than their traditional things that they had been serving over and over for a long time. So they found out, well, they did what a lot of schools do. Something's popular, they serve it all the time until people get sick of it. But what they learned eventually was having dishes from these other countries was actually good for all of the students. Everybody kind of appreciated the unique, the difference and the variety. It actually made all of their food taste better. Like you have a richer palate, and I think that's really interesting. Yeah. So, what are some of the other things that stick out in terms of differences that you think some students for sure will find very valuable?
Well, the classes, for example, they're smaller, so the relationship with the professors is much closer. Also, which I think is huge for a person that is not from the country. When you start college, probably your English is not that well, so having this close relationship with the professors is huge for their self-esteem and the educational experience. I will say that the professors are more involved. At least this is my perspective. And why is this? Because many professors, they have like another business or another job aside from being a professor. So basically they're taking the real experience to the class. And I think this is huge because what is the best learning experience is when you are learning from the experience, right? So I remember, like, I have very good professors, but I remember one in microbiology class that he was so passionate about the whole class that I was so passionate about it, because the way he transmit everything, he explains, everything was amazing, and I end up with that class with an A+, like super easy, because I was like this, like I want to listen more, I want to know more. So I think this is so important for a learning environment, and I realized that that's the reason why, because the professors, they really like to be there and they want to transmit that passion to the students. And I think this is huge.
Yeah, I think it is there. Smaller universities do draw, and particularly liberal arts universities, draw a particular type of person to be professors there. They don't pay as well as other institutions. They don't have these external contracts. They draw in a type of person who wants to be involved with the students. And I think international students don't realize that the majority of their professors are very excited to have them in their class. They recognize that having a student from Spain changes the discussion in the class in a way that makes it much more interesting, not only for the students, but for that professor too. When I was the director of international student services, I had professors coming to me every semester saying, I have room in my class. Do you have any students that want to take this class? It essentially recruiting within the university more international students to be in their classroom. And I think that's really unique to think about this relationship between student and professor in the learning model. I mean, this is a person who's an expert in their field, who knows their stuff, right? And the fact that you get to be in relationship with them, not only learn from them in the classroom, but also learn from them in life, is really valuable, and I think adds a layer to learning that I think is really important. I strongly encourage students to get to know their professors, sit up close to the front, introduce yourself, say, hi, my name is, help them pronounce it. They want to pronounce your name correctly, even if it's a name that they're not used to or is pronounced differently where you're from. They want to pronounce it correctly. So helping them pronounce it correctly and letting them know that you're there and you want to learn, I think really elevates the whole experience, and that increases the value for everybody.
Yeah, yes. And even like beyond the classroom, I remember myself, like in order to get into my master in I had to have like recommendation letters. So I was able to have this close connection and like their contact, and say, hey, like I'm getting into this master. Do you mind to get a recommendation letter? And since they know you, they can do it, because if they don't know you, they don't remember you, then how they're gonna write a recommendation letter? And even right now, after like my master professors, I even get even closer than with the ones in college, like in with the major. And I still have connections with them. I have them in my, like in social media and in emails and everything. So I think this is amazing, because even when you are doing things outside the classroom, like for example, myself, like I was doing a research, and then I say, oh, I'm gonna contact this professor because I know it's his field and he knows about it, and I want to know what he thinks about this. And I just send an email like, hey, how are you? Blah, blah. So I think, like you say, I probably say in one of our episodes, but networking, having contact in life is so important.
Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show.
But not only having contacts in general in terms of quantity, but also quality.
Quality.
Exactly, like who are you in contact with, and who is your network. And that in the US, I saw that is something that people do a lot, and it's something that it just happens. You don't have to force it, or you don't have to look for it. It just happens, because even outside the classroom, with my first job experience was in the US, not in my country. And it was about networking, and I love it, because myself, I love to know people all around the world. I know to know new people, to listen to their stories, to their experiences. And in the US, you can get this with the plus of the diversity that we say before. Like it's not the same type of people. It's like so many different people, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really adds a great value to learning. Tell me a little bit, because you went to a school that's not in a big city. And I know that for just because of how population works, a lot of applicants are coming from bigger cities, and they're maybe a little bit nervous about going to a small town where a lot of these colleges are housed. What were maybe some advantages, and maybe some realistically, what were some things that were a problem that you experienced there, and any advice for students?
Yes, my experience with my major was in a small city, and then, well, town, I will say. And then my master's degree was in a very big city that is Miami. So I have like both experiences, and I will stay with the town. I wouldn't choose a big city like Miami to have my major. Moreover, when you came as international, the reasons why is because people know you. You are not just a number, yet they know you with your names and last names. And when you are walking through the campus, it's like, hey, Lara, how are you? You know, like, how was this match the other day? You know, how you're doing with your tennis practice? So this sense of value that we spoke about this a lot in your podcast is something that I really value and I like it because you have it from small universities. So that's one thing. The second thing is like you spend less money because there's many things to do around. And I remember myself, it's a very small town when I was, and there was nothing really like in a walking distance. You only have like one pub that it have pizza and music. Then you have the pharmacy, and then like a very, very, very small supermarket. That's it in a walking distance. Then you have to get the car, which we don't have cars when we're internationals. So we always go to a 15 minutes town next to us that they have bowling every Tuesday, $1. It was
Yeah.
the whole thing. So that was the only activity that we do spending money. The rest of activities, it was with us. You know, yeah, we just go to your room or let's do something else outside. So I think you start valuing more like doing stuff with people instead of I'm gonna pay to get some activity or let's go to the cinema or let's go to the mall. Things that we're
Mhm.
used to in our countries, I didn't have it there, and I think it's very important to have that experience too. So I will say those two are the main reasons. And also the third one is the classes that they're much smaller. So you're gonna have this close relationship and personalization that probably in a big university you won't have that. You know, I mean, it's gonna be still, as we say, different than in your country, but it's a very very big university and a very big city. So is the relationship is kind of like less personalized and
Yeah.
close.
And I think about I'm delighted to hear that coming from a student's perspective because I think that's true. And I think from a parent's perspective, so if you're a parent thinking about where you want to send your student, why wouldn't you want to go a place where they're going to be recognized for their value, where somebody's going to be encouraging them to be their full self, to come out of their shell if they're quiet, or if they're to identify their strengths and have opportunities for them to express their strengths and to do their thing and figure out what their thing is. I'm so pleased as a dad. My son went to a smaller school in a smaller town, and he didn't have a lot of the distractions that some of his classmates who went to bigger cities and bigger universities. They got distracted by some of the things on the outside, and it took away. And he didn't. He was very focused on his school experience, not just academics, which he did fine in, but the other opportunities that were there. And as a parent, man, that's what I want. Plus the fact that he was connected, and I'm not making this up. I had professors send me emails saying, I went to this student event, your son performed at this event, I recorded a video, and they sent it to me. That would never happen at a big state university, or even at a university where there's a lot of stuff going on. The school itself doesn't do much in terms of activities. So there's no opportunities for students to just like do their thing. For this university anyway, there was so much stuff, so many activities that you could do on campus that cost little to nothing. And then, like you said, the importance of being able to get together with friends and say, there's nothing to do here, but then the joy that comes from whatever you end up doing together.
Exactly. It's like
Say, playing
imagination,
little
creation.
Yes. I think it's so valuable as adults to have had that experience. And you can see it I'm involved now in community development in my town. And the difference between the people who went to smaller colleges and the people who went to big universities is clear in terms of their creativity, even in community development. The way they think about, the big universities are all about who can we bring in to entertain us. They want to bring guest artists. And the small school people are always like, we have talented people here. It doesn't need to cost us anything. It's just so different. I think it comes from from how they learn to adult. I think the school makes a big difference.
Yes. And I think that's a very good ending, saying that as we know, there's so many institutions in the US and there are different sizes, types, and everything. But I think this is the good part of it, like at the end, like you say, we don't have to have our students in the very well known university with all these resources and everything, because there is to find the right fit for the student. And as we say, like, for honestly, I usually recommend this, like going to a small college. You don't have to be like in this top university. After, probably you can end up in those universities. I mean, I did it and I didn't really plan it. But I have first this other experience that actually like helped me and boost my self-esteem and my value. That actually
Yeah.
probably that's why I end up in a very big university with a very well-known name, is because I have this experience before. So I think that's the key here.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. Thank you, Laura. We'll leave it with that. I'm sure we'll be back recording another episode in the future. But until then, if you missed previous episodes with Laura, you can find them on Global Student Voices. And as always, we want to hear from you what you're curious about, what you have questions about, whether you're students or parents. Let us know. And if it's about scholarship and about the experience, or you just want to hear more from Lara, we'll arrange another time to have her on. But on Global Student Voices, we always want to hear from you. So thanks again, Lara. And thanks for tuning in until our next episode.
Thank you so much, Scott, for the next time.
I'm so grateful you stayed till the end. This was a great episode, and I hope it was really helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, but we also wanted to make you aware of some of the other ways that you can connect with Global Student Solutions. Global Student Voices is a service of Global Student Solutions. We also provide books and resources like you see behind me, as well as a variety of other services, educational content, and consulting. So we would love to connect with you. And at the very least, if you can follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have a membership program coming up, and we'd like you to be the first member. So let us know, get your name on the list, and we'll make sure that you're the first to join the membership community. Thank you, and have a great day.